Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, I figured this episode will do a little player highlight. Again, have done this in the past with some other Yankee players. And not too long ago, did a look back at the 1952 World Series. So kind of wanted to do another, remember when so-and-so was a Yankee. I was kind of thinking of Rondell White just kind of randomly. Again, he was with the Yankees back in 2002. They can't, part of that team when they signed Giambi. But then I was kind of poking around a bit, thinking of different names, and I came up, Luis Polonia. He's someone I mentioned, one of my old Yankee stories. I actually met him one time after a game in '94, got an autograph by him. So, say he's one of the, great Yankees you really remember. But what I did find it interesting that I didn't really actually realize that he actually had 3 different runs in a Yankee uniform. So a pretty long career, and then 3 times, visiting the Bronx Bombers and, playing for the Yankees there. So I kind of found that interesting. So I said, all right, you know what? Let's do Luis Polonia as the player highlight. So that's who we'll cover in this episode. So before we get started, to get little cool things like this, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. It's only available for you podcast subscribers there. So wherever you're listening to this, crush, kill, destroy that like or subscribe button and get notified when new episodes come up. Again, we'll look back at Yankee history, Yankee present, Yankee future, all stuff Yankees. Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. So Luis Polonia, you may remember him from like the late 80s, 90s. And again, he was part of the 2000 World Series championship Yankees there. Was part of the team that beat the Mets there and was part of that, game 1 rally where the Yankees had to come back against Benitez. I kind of get into that. But Polonia himself, he was born December 10th, 1963 in the Dominican Republic. Kind of a short guy. He would kind of crouch down, a left-handed hitter. He was a left-handed hitter, outfielder who would throw lefty. And he was your basic leadoff type hitter, kind of, he would work walks, have a high batting average. And he was a speed. The problem was, he was a fast guy, but not really a great, instincts in terms of stealing bases. Like he would steal a lot of bases, but he'd also get caught a lot. So kind of a yin-yang there. Not like a high percentage steal guy, just more like he'll just go all the time. And hey, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. So not really smart in that regard. But again, generally what you call like a leadoff hitter. Not really a power guy. Maybe he'll bop a home run once in a while there. I would almost say like maybe like a poor man's Johnny Damon, more or less. Never was an all-star, never like sort of would you say, wow, this guy's great. Just kind of a good role player type guy. And that was kind of his, guess his background, when he was playing, I guess, in the Dominican Republic there, just, a fast guy, but he would get caught a lot as well. And he would bring that into the majors, as I'll, kind of, give you the numbers there. So he would sign with the Oakland A's, and he would make his debut with Oakland in 1987. So he's in, he's part of the Bash brothers there with, Canseco and McGuire, kind of witnessing that up close. And a year later, 1998, he would play in his first World Series, so getting a taste of the postseason pretty early in his career. And that was a World Series between the Oakland Athletics and the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers would win that World Series, and Polonia himself was, didn't really help much, only going 1 for 9 in that series. Now, in the next year, 1989, he would get his first taste of Yankee pinstripes. So it was June of that year, so it was a trade. Now he was packaged in a trade with Eric Plunk and Greg Caradet for Ricky Henderson. Again, that's when the Yankees were trying to, the Yankees kind of went big there with the big names, Winfield and of course Ricky Henderson, and they always had a good offense there. But I guess by the late 80s, they wanted to tear it down. I guess Ricky Henderson was probably driving everyone nuts. Don Mattingly starting having the injuries, and of course he had that whole situation with George Steinbrenner and Dave Winfield kind of going at each other a little bit. And that kind of started a rift between Winfield and the Yankee organization, which finally repaired itself maybe very recently. But for those a good 20, 25 years, they were like Winfield wanted nothing to do with the organization just for, I think Steinbrenner was like trying to spy on him and try to, get the IRS to go after Winfield. It's like whatever, George back in the day was going crazy. So I guess they was looking to tear it down. So they trade Henderson to Oakland. And then that's how the Yankees ended up getting Luis Polonia. And Eric Plunk there, if you remember, he was decent for the Yankees in the bullpen for a while again, but nothing for long term. He would eventually go on to the Cleveland Indians a few years after that. But with the Yankees, only had a half a season there, but would hit .313 with 9 steals. So, as you kind of say, a high batting average, got some steals there, but did run into some legal trouble. Unfortunately, in August of that year, had a little situation in Milwaukee, apparently with a minor sexual assault with a 15-year-old there. So the judge sentenced him to 60 days in prison, but the judge was, I guess, kind enough to let him finish out the baseball season. So even that he had that hanging over his head, he had to, finish out the season. And then in October, once the season over, serve 60 days in prison for that infraction. Plus, he had to give like $10,000 fine to some hospital that deals with sexual assaults like that. So obviously, not making a good first impression in New York. And of course, you would see what would happen afterwards. The next season, 1990, just 11 games into the season, they trade him to the Los Angeles, or I guess back then it was the California Angels, for a package which included Claudel Washington and Rich Monteleone. And Monteleone, it's kind of had a little something going there as a pitcher, but again, he eventually would fizzle out there. Now, he spent 3 years with the Angels organization, his best year being in 1991, where he hit .336, had a 122 OPS, and finished in third place with 9 triples, but also, as I said before, led the league in getting caught stealing. So, a fast guy, but I guess he's a little reckless and just goes for it, whatever. But he gets nailed a lot as well. Now, after the 93 season, would come back to the Yankees, but this time as a free agent. So I guess, getting traded away, I guess he really didn't do anything for his, whatever, ego like that. He had no problem coming back to the Yankees. And in 94, now that was the strike shortened season, so it wasn't a full season, but in that season for the Yankees, hit .311 and was 20 out of 32 in stolen bases, so that's not terrible. You like to rather be like 25 out of 32, but nevertheless, 20 steals for the Yankees there. But of course, as you know, the 94 season was cut short with the strike. Now, we would finally resume in 1995. He was still under contract with the Yankees, but the Yankees, for whatever reason, decided to trade him to the Braves. And fortunately for Polonia, that 95 Braves team went to the postseason. So now this is his second postseason run, and they would make it to the World Series against the Cleveland Indians, beating them. So Polonia would get his first ring there with the Atlanta Braves. And in the World Series himself, he went 4 for 14 with 1 walk, a double, 3 runs scored, and 4 RBI. So chipped in a little bit there and got his first ring for the Atlanta Braves. Now, once his contract was up in 96, to start the season, he was actually signed by the Seattle Mariners. Now, it was a non-guaranteed contract, but by spring training of that year, he was released. So I guess really wasn't doing that well, and I guess maybe didn't show any promise. So soon after that, the Orioles actually picked him up off the scrap heap at that point. Now, he would get signed by the Orioles, get sent to their Rochester minor league team, only play 14 games before being cut by the organization, is kind of floating around out there. But he would get picked up again by the Braves in August of that year. And if you may recall, 96, that's the year that the Yankees played the Atlanta Braves in the World Series. And again, the Yankees stopping the Braves from going back to back there. Now, Polonia himself, overall in the series, didn't hit great against his former team, going 0 for 10. But if you may recall, it was the Game 5 there, that final battle. Again, that was the pitching duel between Andy Pettitte and John Smoltz. Again, the Yankees fell down 2-0 in that World Series, shifted to Atlanta, won Game 3 behind David Cohn. Then you had the crazy Game 4 with the Jim Leyrit's 3-run home run off of Mark Wahlers, where the Yankees came back in that game. Again, the dramatic comeback from 6 runs down to tie the series 2-2. And then you had the big Game 5, the pitches duel between John Smoltz and Andy Pettitte. Andy Pettitte barely squeaking out there the 1-0 win over John Smoltz there and the Braves. And really, but it came down to that last at bat, if you may remember, with John Wetland, Luis Polonia, Polonia battling, fouling pitches off, and then finally sends a shot into right field, and you're like, this might be a double there. And you had Paul O'Neill with the bad hamstring and hobbled, able to just muster enough speed to catch the ball, slam against the wall there, and close out the win. And again, but a very gratifying, satisfying win for the Yankees, where they were able to take a 3-2 lead in the series and then go back for Game 6 back in the Bronx. And, of course, that's where they closed it out. And, of course, we all know the image of Charlie Hayes catching that ball there in foul territory for third base and then running, and John Wetland, of course, being hoisted up there on the pitcher's mound. But it was Luis Polonia in that Game 5 there. Again, he didn't do much for the Braves overall, but just that at-bat there was this nerve-wracking, fouling pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch, and then finally hits a shot, and then luckily O'Neill was able to flag it down with the bad hammy there. So unfortunately, so that would be his third trip to the World Series, in his career. So far, only 1 ring to show for that. Now, afterwards, he was in 97 signed with Tampa Bay. Again, that was going to be the new, they were going to be the new franchise in 98 there. Again, both Tampa Bay and the Colorado Rockies with 2 new teams there. But he actually never got to play. Ended up going to the Mexican League. Would go play for the Mexican City Tigres, where he actually led the league in steals and was second in batting average there. Now, in the winter of that year, he would play a little winter ball. He would hit .382. So here's a guy who was seemingly getting released a lot. Also, now he's hitting almost 400 steroids anyway. Spent another year the next season, 98, also in the Mexican League. Hit just as well, hit 381, and was 36 out of 45 in steals. And then, of course, the winter of 98 played some more winter ball where he hit 336 and won a batting title. So he seemed to really, whether he changed his swing or was dealing with some PEDs or something, but it seemed like that move to the Mexican League, those 2 years there, actually just revitalized his career and was, a high, almost a 400 hitter there. So it's just a little curious there. I mean, I didn't say he's a major league talent going to a lesser place, but nevertheless, very curious how all of a sudden he became, Ted Williams all of a sudden. But nevertheless, would come back to the majors in 1999, late in the season, was signed by the Detroit Tigers. So he went from the Mexico City Tigres to the Detroit Tigers, where he hit a respectable 324 with 10 home runs in 87 games. So let's just say you double that in a normal 162 game season there. You probably look at a guy who's hitting, probably about 315 with about 18 to 20 home runs, which, again, that's pretty darn good at that point. Again, this is getting later in his career. But in 2000, he would start off with Detroit again, but halfway through the season, only hitting 273, was released after 80 games. And it's kind of weird there because it's not like he was garbage, but I guess whatever reason they just didn't fit into his plans, or again, maybe they kind of found out how he became such a great hitter again and just wanted to part ways with him. But nevertheless, he was now out there floating around. And so August 3rd of that year, 2000, comes back for the Yankees for a third tenure with the Yankees, serving as a part-time outfielder as well as DH. Now, didn't have a really big impact on that team. Again, the 2000 team ready for their third World Series championship in a row, but did have a big role in the game one of that World Series against the Mets. Again, that was the one where they came back against Benitez. Again, Paul O'Neill would lead off that inning with a big walk against Benitez, and Polonia would keep it going with a single, and eventually the Yankees would tie the score of that game and then go on to win thanks to a game-winning hit by Jose Vizcaíno for the Yankees to break the Mets' heart there and take game one. Again, Polonia was part of that rally there. And similar to what, when he battled John Wetland back in 96, just kind of battled Benitez there and got a good ball to hit and was able to sneak one in the hole, in the second base hole there, just keep that rally going. So, again, Luis Polonia, not really a big impact on the Yankee organization, but that at bat and being part of that, I guess that was probably be his highlight of his career, if you would say so. And then after the World Series that year, he finally retired from baseball. I guess, whatever. I guess he figured the jig was up, whatever. Just, I don't know, for whatever reason. He probably could have gotten a contract somewhere else, but I guess a lot of bounce around for the guy. Now, these days, he runs the Polonia Baseball Academy. In 2016, he was inducted to the Caribbean Baseball Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, 3 years ago now, he did suffer a tragedy. On May 8th of 2020, his son Rodney, former player, was found dead of apparent heart attack. Now, this was 2020 May. I don't know. Was it COVID-related? Probably not. Who knows? Was it drug-related? Who not? Who knows? But unfortunately, dead at a young age of 27 there. So that's the personal life of Polonia. But looking back on his major league career, again, these are the major league numbers, nothing to do with any of the Mexican League, anything like that. Very respectable batting average of 293. Career of 1,417 hits. Only 36 home runs. Again, not really a big power guy. 405 RBIs and 278 runs. And had 2 rings there. Again, one with the Atlanta Braves in 95 and then one with the New York Yankees in 2000. Never an all-star, never a silver slugger, never really a leader of anything like that. Just a kind of a solid player, outfielder, leadoff type player there for a number of teams and bounced around a lot there. And with the Yankees, had 3 different numbers. So his first go-around in 89, he wore number 22. When he signed with the Yankees, the free agent in 94, wore number 17. And then his last go-around with the Yankees in 2000, wore number 19. So 3 different uniform numbers for Luis Polonia. In his, I guess, when you add it all up, even though he played a lot of years, technically it's only 12 years, even though he bounced around to a bunch of different teams and leagues and stuff like that. So kind of interesting career there. And again, part of the Yankees on both sides there, as mentioned before, part of that 96 team, the Braves there, just that big battle against John Wetland. And of course, with the Yankees in 2000 there, that battle against Armando Benitez. So a Yankee enemy and a Yankee friend there. So that's the life and times of Luis Polonia. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you know a little bit more about Luis Polonia. And make sure you subscribe to this to get more content like this coming up. Again, we still have about a month left before spring pitches and catches. And, of course, I'll try to find some cool things like this, some little Yankee knowledge, little Yankee history of stuff you might not know. So at the next cocktail party, you can impress people with your knowledge of Luis Polonia. Catch you next time.